Can I get Pledge of Allegiance, please? And I put a flag up behind me, so we'll do the best we can do. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the
United States of America,
and
to the republic
for
for which it stands,
one
one nation,
under
under
God,
God,
indivisible,
indivisible,
with
with liberty
and justice for
and
all.
justice for all.
Thank you, everyone. Roll call, please.
Ken Nelson,
Present, here.
Linda DeGray,
Here.
Charles Ladd,
Here,
Mary Scott, absent, Virginia Higley,
Here.
Francis Alimo,
Here.
John Petronella,
Here.
Dane Thorogood, absent, and Vinnie Grillo,
Here.
and Richard Suzak is here.
Okay, at this point, I'd like to seat the alternate, John Petronella, because Ginny just joined us again.
I keep fading out. I was in a quarter of it. It dumped me out. So I got back in again. It dumped me out. So I'm here.
Okay, yep, I saw you pop on, so you're in. Can I get an approval of the minutes for April 9th, 2020?
so moved.
Second.
Okay, the motion's been made and seconded. Any questions or concerns about the minutes, alterations?
They look good to me.
Okay, seeing none, all in favor?
Wait, 1 minute. Page 9, first sentence, it should be do instead of sue. Ms. Written stated that this has been sidetracked due to the current COVID, not sue. That's the only correction.
Okay, motion to approve as amended,
So
So
moved.
moved.
second?
Second.
All in favor by roll call, please?
Ken Nelson,
4.
Linda DeGray,
4.
Charles Ladd,
4,
Virginia Higley,
4.
Francis Alimo,
4.
John Petronella,
4.
Vinnie Grillo, is Vinnie Grillo here? Yes. Okay, Richard Suzak is 4.
Okay, all in favor, none against? Do we have any bond releases this evening?
No, we don't.
I think we lost Jen, Lori.
She's there again. I can see her.
Yeah.
Jenny, can you hear us?
Yeah, my internet is spotty, so I keep getting booted, but
Okay.
it keeps coming back, so.
Okay. So at this point, Vinny, with Ginny's internet coming and going, just be prepared to get seated as an alternate if she gets bumped out.
Oh, thanks a lot.
Yes, sir.
Continued public hearings, I don't see any. And new public hearings. None. Old business, I don't see any. New business, public hearing PH 2968.
I'll take roll. Ken Nelson,
Here,
Linda DeGray,
Here.
Charles Ladd,
here,
Virginia Higley,
Here.
Francis Alimo,
Here.
John Petronella,
Here.
Vinnie Grillo,
Here.
and Richard Suzak is here.
bless you. Okay, is there anyone present who is speaking for the applicant?
Yes, Chris Marszalek.
Okay, your address, Chris, please.
15 South Road, Enfield, Connecticut.
Okay, just give us a little bit of synopsis of what you would like to do.
Currently, I have a 2-family situated at 1283 Enfield Street. I'd like to convert it to a 3-family by subdividing the lower level into 2 units. Both would have their own entrance, and we'd only have to add a kitchen to the front unit and a bathroom. And we've had that laid out. I've walked through the building department for fire codes, and I think we can have no problem meeting all the fire codes and get it ready for whatever building issues may come along.
Okay. Commissioners, questions, comments, concerns?
You know, I have one in terms of, I noticed that in our synopsis or plan review, it indicates that there was a video scope taken to inspect the condition of the sewer, and it was reported that, you know, there were some places that the sewer pipe would require repair or replacement. Has that been done?
No, it has not been done. I've been waiting for the approval for the meeting, because if I do convert to a 3-family, I will have to do some additional plumbing. And the thought is to get all the plumbing done at once, but I would have that done if the zoning approved this.
Because I would probably add that as a condition of approval, as a site condition specific, just so that we have it on record that it be taken care of.
It will be, yes.
All set, Rich?
Yeah, because, you know, I think that, you know, it was mentioned that, because the fire marshal had a concern about meeting the fire codes, and he was, you know, somewhat, you know, I guess, you know, had some reservation as to everything could be done. But as long as we sort of include, you know, something along those lines, that fire marshal be, and I know that, you know, the discussion was that, you know, the building official is satisfied, but is the fire marshal going to be satisfied? They both have to be satisfied.
Well, I know firsthand that when I did major work on a unit or divided units, the fire marshal was just as much a part of the inspections as the building inspector. And they required fire separation all the way up to the ridge line. Any separation must, I believe it's a 2-hour burn rating, which would require, you know, thicker sheetrock and stuff like that. I also noticed the concerns of the fire marshal. And I think that's why Chris brought it up, that he saw that the concerns were there. But I do know the fire marshal is going to be part of the inspection process on this. And if Chris is aware of what it's going to take to satisfy the fire marshal and the building officials, I'm okay with putting it as a condition, but I do know they are very much involved through the construction process.
It is something that I did address with the building department, and we are aware of what we need to do to meet the regulations. I don't think we'll have any problems in doing so. And we'll make sure we're done through the building department.
As long as everybody's aware that, you know, there are some requirements there, and they might get somewhat specific, and you will have to accommodate them.
Correct. Yes, sir.
Chris, are you aware, is the current building balloon framed?
I do not believe it is.
It is not. Okay. All right. Any other commissioners, questions or concerns?
And Ken, just to address the framing, we will be doing no wall changing, no rearranging of any walls, interior or anything. So.
Right. I'm concerned because I know the fire marshal actually made me block a 4-family I had that was balloon framed, and it created quite a problem for me. But I mean, I got it done. So mineral wool, all different, you know, ways to address it. So it's just
Understood.
It could be a big undertaking.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. For some reason, I can't see hands going up. So if a commissioner has any questions, please speak up.
I just had one, Kenny.
Go ahead, Charlie.
I only noticed one exit from the second floor. I didn't see the other one on the print. That could have been
There are two exits. There's a staircase in the front and there's a staircase in the back of the building. Both
Okay, I
interior.
probably just missed it then. Sorry. That was my only concern.
Mr. Chairman, Ken,
Yes.
if you go to the top right hand of your screen and get out of full screen.
I accidentally hit a button and it did exactly what you just said, so. Yeah,
A serendipitous.
okay. Any other, anything else you'd like to add, Chris, before I open this up to the public?
No, I think that's it. There was a question about parking. I don't know if it was addressed in this, but we are able to accommodate all the parking as well, so.
And actually, that was the question that I was going to ask. In your answer, in the documents you provided, you had stated that there was parking in the garage. Are you using those garage spaces as part of your parking?
One of the spaces is currently used by a tenant, yes.
Okay, now, the spot behind it, or for that tenant to get in and out, is that also a space? In other
I'm not
words,
sure.
will that tenant be able to move in and out of the garage freely?
Yes, they will. Yes.
Okay, that was my concern about the parking.
Understood. Yep, they will.
Okay, at this time, I'd like to open it up to the public. If there's anybody on this meeting that would like to speak, you can raise your hand through the computer or speak up, and we will acknowledge you. Anybody like to speak? Going once? Anyone out there with questions or concerns for public hearing 2968? Going twice? And for the third time? Okay, can I get a motion to close the public hearing, please?
So moved.
And a second?
Second,
Okay. All in favor by roll call?
I'll make a motion first. I'll move that we approve
We got to close the public hearing first, Rich.
okay. Oh, okay, we're gonna roll call the public hearing?
Yeah,
All right, hold on. Ken Nelson,
for,
Linda DeGray,
or
Charles Ladd,
4,
Virginia Higley,
4,
Francis Alimo,
4.
John Petronella,
4.
Vinnie Grillo,
4.
and Richard Suzak is 4.
okay, now the public hearing's closed. Can we get a motion to approve public hearing 2968?
Mr. Chair, I'll make a motion for the approval of public hearing 2968 in relationship to the resolution as prepared by the planning department dated April 23rd, I'm sorry, with the 19 conditions listed and an additional, I guess, at least one condition that the sewer is going to be, I guess, rectified and repaired as required. And possibly the second one would be that, all the code requirements for the state and, the fire marshal be addressed during, the construction phase.
I'm okay with both conditions. Commissioners?
sure.
yeah,
I'm good with it.
Okay, can I get a second then, please?
second,
Okay, all in favor by roll call, please?
Ken Nelson,
4.
Linda DeGray,
or
Charles Ladd,
4,
Virginia Higley,
4,
Francis Alimo,
4.
John Petronella,
4.
Vinnie Grillo. Oh, he's not voting. I'm sorry. Rich Suzak is 4.
Okay, all in favor, none against. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Okay, moving on to public hearing 2970.
Ken Nelson,
Here.
Linda DeGray,
here,
Charles Ladd,
here,
Virginia Higley,
here,
Francis Alimo,
You're muted, Frank.
Here.
John Petronella,
Here.
Vinnie Grillo,
Here.
and Richard Suzak is here.
Okay, state your name and address for the record, please.
Chris Marszalek, 15 South Road, Enfield, Connecticut.
Welcome, Chris. Nice to see you again.
Thank you for having me.
Same thing. Please give us a synopsis of what you are intending to do.
Similar situation. I have a 2-family at 34 Maple Street. I'd like to split the lower level into 2 more units. Similar concerns. We will have the sewer line inspected. We have not done that yet. If approved, I will have that done, and we will have any issues rectified. We will also address any fire issues with the building department and the fire department as far as fire rating and framing and things of that nature. We also have addressed the parking. The upstairs unit uses the left side of the house, and the 2 downstairs units would split the garage and also have additional 2 units of parking.
Great. Commissioners? Charlie, I see your hands up. Is that up from before?
Yes, but I still want to ask about the second exit on that third apartment.
Go right ahead.
I only saw one exit for the third apartment on the second floor.
The upstairs apartment does only have 1 exit. That's the way it was when I purchased the home recently. I wasn't going to make any alterations to that apartment. It has its own separate
I think
entrance.
that might be a problem. That could be a problem with the fire department.
Are the windows egress, Chris?
Yes, the windows you can get in and out of. I didn't think being I wasn't doing anything to that third unit that I would not have to address the entrance, the egress.
Because aren't you?
Are you done, Charlie?
Yes, I'm not sure what the ordinance is on that, but I think the fire department will be interested in seeing a second exit.
Right. Commissioner Suzak?
Because wasn't there always a second exit? Isn't that the access from the new unit that you're adding? Is that it's taking the second exit that used to exist and allowing them to access the second floor?
No. The upstairs unit had its own entrance on the other side of the house. It's been 1 entrance in and out. Like I said, the third unit's upstairs and it's on the other side of the house, the entrance. The first floor apartment has an entrance on the other side of the house with the garages and the carport.
But aren't you adding unit number 1?
I'm adding to unit number 1 on the first floor.
Right, but originally the first floor only had 1 unit there.
Correct.
Now it has, the main unit, which is the larger unit, the 1,200 square foot unit, and it also has that new little unit, the 500 square foot unit.
So the
500 square foot unit is using a stairs to access the second floor for the second bed for its bedroom.
No, those stairs don't go upstairs. That's just the first floor entrance. The stairs in the top of that, the second floor entrance, that's just for the second floor unit.
No, but how does how does unit number 1 get to the second floor?
It doesn't get to the second floor.
Then doesn't it have
It gets to the second floor in the back. So those stairs in the back of the house, I'm sorry, I understand what you're saying now. The stairs in the back of the house are interior stairs, and it's just currently through that unit. That unit currently right now is the first floor, and then the back portion of that house has an interior staircase up to that unit that was existing.
So before there used to be access between the second floor and the first floor through that stair. Was that closed up when you had 2 units? Only 2 units there?
There was never. It's almost an addition to the house. It was done before I bought the house, but it's actually they're separate units. There was never a connection. There was no hallway upstairs connecting the 2 units at all. That's somewhere along the back portion of
that stair exists if there was no connection between the 2 units, but now all of a sudden it magically appears so that you have access to the second floor for that unit number 1?
No, there was, so it's somewhere in the past, and I don't know when exactly, I would say about 15, 20 years ago, looking at the construction, that back unit was added on to just the first floor and with an upstairs access or an upstairs unit specifically for the first floor unit. Somewhere along the line, the current owner, the owner that owned the house before me, added on that addition to the back of the house with an upstairs and just an interior
So
access.
the first floor always had part of the second floor as part of its, accessible space?
Not in the main house. It doesn't look like. It does not appear. It appears from the main house was always two separate units. And somewhere along the line, they added the back portion of the house where the new unit would be, the unit 1, that was added on somewhere.
Okay, let's back up one more step. Maybe I'm getting confused. But what you said is that right now, regardless of how many additions or permutations occurred at the building, right now there's 2 units.
Correct.
There's a unit on the first floor and there's a unit on the second floor.
Right, and the first floor unit has a portion of the upstairs as its unit, as the first floor unit.
Okay, so that's what I don't understand. So right now, the first floor actually has part of the second floor as part of its.
Correct. Correct. In the back side of the house, yes.
Okay. So now what you're doing is you're just dividing part of the first floor so that it has that unit for that it's part of
correct.
Okay.
Correct. It'll have the upstairs, downstairs, and I'll just put a foyer. The only thing I'll be adding is a foyer into the first floor's entrance, and that'll separate the units.
All right. Because I have one more question. In terms of, is there a house in the back of this lot, or is that a separate lot?
There's it's a 2-family house in the back of the lot as well.
And is it just one lot? Are two residences allowed on one lot?
I would assume so because it was there. It's been there since the 50s. So I don't know if you'd say it was grandfathered in, but it's been there for a long period of time.
Lori, can you address that?
I will defer to Jen because she's the one that reviewed this one.
Jen?
I would say that, yeah, it is grandfathered in. There's a lot of stuff out towards the Hazardville area that they're just non-conformities that have existed for many, many years out that way. And this property, it's called Maple Street. It's up North Maple Street. And when I looked it up, it said that the first house was built in the 1800s, and it doesn't have the same information for the house in the rear on the assessor card, I don't think, but I think it's really old, and at this point would be grandfathered as having those 2 different buildings on the property.
So
that would make sense.
So I would just be concerned with when you came to us, Chris, and we changed the regulations to accept something like this, didn't we limit it from a 2 to a 3 and no more than a 4? And now adding a 3rd unit on this property, you're really adding a 5th unit on this property. I don't want to do something that's going to set a precedence here. The other property is very clear. The definition you gave us, we followed it and we stayed with it. But this one here, being on the same property, that's really a 4-family on that property. There's 4 family residents on that property.
The way I understood it, it was 2 separate units, so it's not considered a 4-family. There are 2 families. With that being said, I don't have the answer for that. I did have the conversation with a couple different individuals about how that lot sits, and the determination we came up that it was 2 families and it wasn't considered a 4-family. But I do understand your concern and your wording of the lot itself having more than
Well, say you or anybody goes to sell that property now, it's no longer a residential property, it's a commercial property because there's 5 units on it instead of 4. Even though they're 2 separate buildings, it's on one deed. You know, we're kind of crossing a threshold here that, you know, even for your protection, I mean, insurance, fire sprinklers, I mean, what is the fire department going to require? Because I know 5 units require fire suppression systems. You know, being on the same property, even though they're 2 separate buildings, it's still one property.
Yeah, Ken, the only thing I don't have the answer for you, but I can say that I did have the conversations, and it was, I was under the impression it was deemed that it was going to be considered two families.
Right.
So that's the way I looked at it.
Right. Commissioner Alimo.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. So currently, both dwellings are on one deed, one owner, correct?
Correct.
So it's very possible that when those 2 buildings were constructed, they were separate parcels. Because there's a lot of that type of construction down in the Thompsonville area as well. You'll see structures behind structures that were separate lots and could have been merged. I'm just putting that out on the table because it's very possible that if you look at the history of your title or your deed, that could have been 2 lots at one time. That's just very common in that era to have that type of construction. If that's helpful.
Commissioner Suzak.
Yeah, you know, because what we did is we said that you can only use this, you know, section of the regulations once, and possibly, you know, they used this section of regulations to put that second house on. So now all of a sudden, you know, when we're looking at it again, you know, it sort of is double dipping, you know, and that's what we're trying to prevent. And the fact that it already has 4 units, you know, might sort of negate the fact that, okay, you're using it once, but it was already used once before in the past. And, you know, and it starts getting to be a quagmire and you know, possibly, you know, I'm not that comfortable with that kind of situation. And because it starts spiraling out of control, more or less like Mr. Nelson, Commissioner Nelson Chairman Nelson is saying that, you know, if it turns into a 5-unit, you know, lot, then it's going to be something entirely different. And then all of a sudden everybody's going to say, well, why did planning and zoning let you do that when it's not allowed? So.
I mean, I look at it from lending institutions and appraisals. When they go in to appraise that property, they're going to appraise it with 4 units on it currently. And now, once you do this 5th unit, it becomes a commercial property. And all banks, I mean, they stick with the same guidelines, and those are kind of the guidelines I'm following. And when you approached us with this, I'm all for what you're trying to do and, you know, changing the regulations up to 4 units. And that's why I had concerns, and we all agree, you know, no more than 4 units because it flips it to a commercial property. And how is it any different when somebody with a 4-family on Maple Avenue comes to us and wants to add a 5th unit? It's the same parcel. And that's my big concern, Chris. And, you know, if we can do something, if you can, you know, come up with wording from the fire departments, the building departments and stuff like that, that they're not going to require you with 5 units on this property to put in a fire suppression system and stuff like that, and they deem it as 2 separate dwellings, because I know a bank isn't going to, then, you know, I might be able to see things a little differently. You've been in the business a long time too, and I think you're following what I'm saying here. You know, if I were to buy this property off of you with 5 units, I have to go under the commercial lending programs.
I understand.
and at this point, because my concerns with the 5 units, I would be very leery to pass this tonight, but I would be willing to maybe postpone the public hearing and have you address this with the building department and the fire marshals and get their input, because really, if they're going to require you to put a fire suppression system in, is it even worth you doing anymore?
Correct. I understand. All right, well, let me do some homework and see what I can come up with.
Okay, and I want to open it up to the public. I'll let the commissioners finish asking. We'll open it up to the public. So if there's any other questions, you have time to address them. And then I would be for postponing the public hearing to the next meeting,
Okay.
if you think that's enough time. Commissioner Ladd.
Yes, I was curious. You said you spoke with some people and they said you wouldn't have a problem. Who were the people you spoke to?
Well, I didn't say they wouldn't have a problem. I just said that we could look at it and that it would be deemed that it would be considered two family units. I walked through with the building department and I had a phone conversation with the fire department. With that being said, it was a general conversation about how we could look at it. And in theory, everybody said that it could be two families. I know when I had my appraiser, they appraised it as two families, but to Ken's comment, yeah, as far as the loan, it is one loan, so it would be considered 4 units. So I understand where the commission's coming from, and I will definitely address it with the building department, the fire department, to see exactly where I stand and get something in writing.
And I apologize because I didn't see in the paperwork the separate unit, separate structure on the property. I'm not sure it's there. One of the other commissioners picked that up. But I would just, in the future, if the staff would list it as all the units on that property, we could avoid a lot of this.
Yeah.
I have great reservations with this. Commissioner Alaimo.
Yes.
You're muted.
I'm sorry.
You're muted.
Just wondering if both dwellings have the same address.
No, they do not. They're 4 separate addresses. It's
They're 4 separate addresses, so there's each.
Yeah. 34, 36, 38, and 40 Maple.
Okay.
But that's standard, Frank, because I've owned many multifamilies that were 5, 7, 11, and not 13.
Right. I was just wondering if, for example, it was the 2 buildings were separated in a way where one would be 28 A, B, and C, and the other would be 30 A, B, and C. For example, 2 different addresses for one parcel. I was just interested to see if it was that way, but thank you.
Commissioner Ladd?
Yes, I was wondering if we should be asking legal about that. About their opinion on this.
We can also do our homework at the same time and try to get an answer for the next meeting.
Well, I'm just curious if it would be, from a legal point of view, as you were saying, if that's the case, then we couldn't pass it anyways.
Well, the issue that I see is, one, it's a brand new regulation that we just approved. And I'm pretty sure the commission was pretty adamant that it's not to exceed 4 units. And
right.
And so really it would be up to our interpretation as a commission. Is this 2 units or is it going to be 5 units or 3 units or 5, Well,
and that's why I think we should ask the town attorney what the courts would think.
Right. So, Lori, is it possible to get a legal opinion?
Hi. Yes, I don't know how quickly we can get a town attorney's opinion, but I certainly think that staff can discuss this amongst ourselves between building and.
Take this in the other room.
And,
I'm muted at the moment. It's
Excuse me, Ginny, can you mute your microphone, please?
I just did.
Okay, thank you. Continue, Lori, sorry.
So we'll certainly discuss this amongst staff and come to a determination. Because I think we also need to look at density as well.
Right, okay. Anything else you want to add, Chris, before I open it to the public?
No, I'm all set. Thank you.
Okay. Is there anybody out there that would like to speak in favor or against public hearing 2970? Please speak up. Going for the second time, anybody out there who would like to speak in favor or against public hearing 2970? For the third time? Anyone? Okay, can I have a motion to possibly postpone this public hearing?
Continue
So
it.
moved.
Yeah,
And
Mr. Chair, I'll make a motion that we continue public hearing 2970 to our next meeting of May 14th.
And Chris, you're okay with postponing this to the next meeting?
What was the date? May 14th?
Yes, I believe that's our next meeting.
Okay, that would be great.
Second.
Thank you very much.
Okay, can I get a second?
Second.
Second,
Okay, all in favor by roll call, please?
Ken Nelson,
4.
Linda DeGray,
4,
Charles Ladd,
4.
Virginia Higley,
4,
Francis Alamo,
4,
John Petronella,
4,
Vinnie Grillo,
no.
4.
and Richard Suzak is 4.
Okay, we're all in favor for postponing. Thank you, Chris, and I look forward to seeing you next meeting. And hopefully we can get this resolved.
Thanks for your time, everybody. Have a good night.
You
Thank
too.
Mhm.
Next on the agenda is public hearing 2969.
Ken Nelson,
Here,
Linda DeGray,
here,
Charles Ladd,
Here.
Virginia Higley,
Here,
Francis Alamo,
Here.
John Petronella,
Here.
Vinnie Grillo,
here.
and Richard Suzak is here.
Okay, all present. Is there someone here speaking for the applicant or the applicant themselves?
John Improda.
And your address, Mr. Improda?
My home address,
Yes.
216 Southeast 15th Place, Cape Coral, Florida, 33990.
Okay, thank you and welcome. Why don't you give us a quick synopsis of what you would like to do?
I'm just looking to move my shop that I had on Enfield Street across the street from where it was.
What type of shop is it?
A tattoo studio.
A tattoo studio. Okay. Commissioners, questions, comments, concerns?
Ken,
Yes, Ginny?
my only concern is that that's the overlay district, right?
Yes.
Okay, so he would have to, if we changed it to add personal services, which I don't have a problem with, he would have to keep the dwelling the same and have specific hours and stuff, correct?
Lori?
So this is a text
Jen.
amendment application. And so basically the property that he wants to move the tattoo shop into is currently zoned residential, but it's on Enfield Street and it was already a business. It just happened to be that business
Oh.
was a business
Okay.
office. And a tattoo shop is considered a personal service. So this text amendment proposal is just to add personal service to the list of allowed uses, which are uses that exist on properties that are residential under the limited office overlay in those areas.
Jen, I'm
Yep.
confused. I thought the limited office overlay zone was just a portion of Elm Street, not Enfield Street.
It's a portion of state roads.
Yeah, it's on
No,
the,
I think that when it was passed for a specific section of Elm Street to guard against commercial sprawl.
Yeah, and I read the regulation, and it is on state roads, Jenny, which does include part of Route 5, not all of Route 5. Elm
Okay.
Street, Hazard Avenue. I had the same concerns, Jenny, and I read through it, and that's
Okay.
how I interpret it.
Okay, well, thank you for explaining it. I was confused. That answers my question. Thank you.
Commissioner DeGray?
Yeah, I do know a couple of people that have this type of business, and I know that their hours are really erratic. They're sometimes late into the evening. I was just wondering how many people are going to be employed in this, and what kind of hours are we talking? I know some of them can work until midnight or 1 o'clock working on a particular piece. That's all.
this application is just for the text amendment. It doesn't include approval for the tattoo shop yet, because right now the tattoo shop wouldn't be allowed there. So under the limited office regulations, you would have to come back with a special permit. And off the top of my head, I don't remember if there are requirements for hours of operation in the limited office overlay zone. But that
There
would
are,
be,
I believe.
I thought it was. So
It's just that I know the hours can be erratic, and it is at this point in a residential zone. So that would be a concern about this. I mean, I don't have a problem with the application, but that is one concern that I think we need to think about.
It's actually surrounded by businesses that are open very sporadic hours, and I'm moving it from a location that was much closer to residential living area.
So if we were to approve this, Jen, would he still have to come to us for a special permit?
yes, because it is still a residential zone and it would have to come under the limited office overlays, and that requires a special permit.
Right. And Mr. Chairman, they would still have to follow the special standards and the requirements in the overlay zone as they're written, because there's no proposal to change that.
Yeah, and
Hold on, Commissioner DeGray?
I'm just reading, and it does have business hours between 8 a.m. and 8 p.m. So obviously it has to be followed. So.
Mr. Improta, would that work for you?
My current business hours for the location that I have are from 10 a.m. to 10 p.m.
that won't work.
Which is in line with what the gym is across the street. The whole plaza is in that area.
How is the gym? Is the gym in the overlay district, Jen?
I don't believe that plaza is zoned residential. I think that is a business local plaza.
Okay.
It is a business local. It's just, again, it's stone's throw.
Right. Right.
Mr. Chair?
Commissioner Higley.
If he's across from the plaza or like diagonally across from it, maybe his better use would be the same zone as the plaza. Because the limited overlay, I understand what you're saying about state roads, and I know you're right, but the people on Elm Street would not be happy if they got their hours, limited office use hours changed to 10 in the evening.
No, I understand. I hear exactly what you're saying. I'm going to be honest, I wasn't too much in favor of this, but knowing that anybody who tries to use this still has to come in front of us for a special permit. I do know there was quite a bad experience with a tattoo parlor right at the state line, you know, and some of the propaganda they were spreading and passing around was just totally unacceptable. So,
well, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
no, go ahead. You had the floor.
Well, I was just going to say that we have to be mindful that if we change, you know, if we allow through special permit a business to be open until 10 in the evening in a limited overlay district, it would behoove other businesses to want the same thing. And I understand that it's a case-by-case basis. I'm just saying that we're inviting more angina than we need to if we can change it to another zone. But that's just my opinion, and thank you for letting me express it.
Mr. Improto, what is currently behind the location you're looking to go to? I understand we're talking about a text amendment, but what my concerns are going to be is if this passes and you come in for a special permit, if you may have, you know, overlay districts on both sides of you, but if you have residential homes behind you, that's going to be a tough sell, at least in my eyes.
So behind the directly behind it, there's like an open lot. It's where the old Dunkin' Donuts used to be. Now but then it was a Teasers. So there was it was almost just like an open lot there. And there's parking behind that building. So I would say probably, you know, at least a good 50, I want to say 50 yards from where it would be some type of residential. And to the right of it, there's a, you know, there's a Jarrett insurance agency. I mean, and they've got a big parking lot that wraps around the back of it. So, I mean, it's all very business oriented area. There's, you know, and like I said, I've been doing this business in that town for 14 years. And, you know, I've never had any issues, you know, as far as conducting myself with this business.
Absolutely. Yep.
So, you know, you know, I'm respectful of all the other businesses in the area and of the residents in the area as well. It's just that, you know, we're talking right on Route 5, right maybe 100 yards from a traffic light, across the street from where the Rockville Bank used to be, which would get drive-through, which is able to get drive-through cars 24/7 for using an ATM. So, I mean, I just don't see how having a shop right in that area is affecting those residents any more than those other businesses would. It would be affecting it, I think, less than those other businesses would. And most of the night business is done by appointment, and the day business would be walk-in. So it's not, and again, it wouldn't be a daily till, you know, all day long till 10. I mean, a lot of those times it'll just be to be able to work with my clients that can't get in during the day and need a later appointment.
Jen, can you move your mouse to the property we're talking about, please?
Right.
Thank you for putting up the map. Oh, it's right there. Okay.
Yeah, so changing the zone would be spot zoning, which is why we went with the text change for limited office.
I know it would be spot zoning.
How did Teasers, because he brought up a point, that's a hair salon, that's personal services, right?
That's directly, I mean, again, it's stone's throw from the place.
Yeah, no, I'm with you, John. I'm asking Jen or Lori, is that in the overlay district? The old Dunkin' Donuts?
I'm not exactly sure where that is.
It's right on the left side of William Street.
The left side of William Street. Okay.
That's the right side, other
Right.
side.
This side.
There you go. Yep.
It must be under a limited office application unless it existed before any of the regulations were.
It did.
It was Dunkin' Donuts ever. And then it
Yep.
became, I believe, an alarm place. Am I correct, John?
Yeah, it was Dunkin' Donuts, and then it turned into like some type of electronic store that I don't think ever opened. And then they were a lot of people that were just storing their vans there for an electrical company. And you know, and again, if you look at the right behind Dunkin' Donuts, it's much closer to a residential dwelling more than the building is that I'm looking at. If you look at the what is it, lot 6 or 657 or whatever it is, I mean, that's a much bigger space, you know,
Right.
away
'Cause
from neighbors.
I know the hair salon just came into us to redo the building. And, you know, is that the overlay district? If it is, how did they get approved to be there? See, I mean, spot zoning, selective, you know, I mean, if we allowed the hairdresser to go in, you know, that's a personal
Ken?
service. It's kind of
Ken?
hard to deny.
That's
And
sort
what
of why that's sort of why I
ahead.
put that list in the staff report, is that it's already a use that's within residential zones on those main roads already. It would just help make those properties more conforming to regulations. But that said, I mean, it's up to the commission if this is something you want to see in those zones or not.
Right. Okay, Commissioner Alimo. Commissioner Alimo? Are you
Sorry,
muted?
yep, I'm here. Is it lot 647 or is it the one to the north of 647?
To the north. It's
The
the
smaller one.
the former Innovest building.
Okay,
It's lot number 639, correct?
639. Is that what it is? 639? That's what I'm looking at?
I believe so. Yeah.
Okay,
This one.
right. So now that was a house at one time, I believe.
It still is a house.
Right. And it's been a business forever, right? It hasn't been residential for a long time.
As long as I've been in Enfield a very long time. I don't remember that whole area. I don't remember it being anything but business.
Right. So what was the business in there before this proposal?
It was a accountant.
Okay. All right. So it's been business for a very, very long time.
It's been vacant and for sale for a couple of years now, and
So
Okay.
I kind of agree with Commissioner Nelson, Chairman Nelson, about the hair salon. We need to find out if that's the overlay. It is a service, and you know they tend to take appointments. People are renting chairs. They have their clients come in later at night as well.
Mr. Chair,
Hold on one second. Are you all set, Commissioner Alimo?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, Commissioner Suzak.
Because I believe all we're trying to do today is to, add personal services to the list. We could have a discussion at a later time as to, what would be an appropriate time or what's not an appropriate time or what makes sense depending on, the location within an overlay district. So, maybe we're getting caught up in the minutia of, doing a lot of different things other than what we're trying to do. And, I think that, the general consensus is that if we add personal services to this list, regardless of what the times are, and there are specific times that they could be utilized, that we would have to address, those other, requirements at the time of the special permit application, not necessarily at today's meeting because
Mhm.
we're never going to solve it. You know, all we can do is say, you know, is it acceptable to add it or not acceptable to add it? And then what happens is we can start having a discussion as to, you know, what's appropriate for the location where it's at rather than try, you know, to change the entire overlay district in the entire town, you know, recognizing that there are some areas that are non-conforming and more, you know, have more potential to, you know, these little irregularities in our regulations and whether they make sense to have those irregularities in our regulations at those locations. So, you know, I think that, you know, we can discuss this forever, but, you know, maybe we should sort of just stay on task and try to keep going towards, you know, an end in that point.
I agree with you, Commissioner Suzak, and as soon as I heard that it still has to come for a special permit, I'm good with that because I think it's going to be unique to each location and what business they want to put in there. But, you know, like the hair salon, we've already really set a precedence for what he's asking us to do. Forgetting about his business and everything at this point, just dealing with the text change, it's really already happening. So we would just, you know, be putting it in the regulations. That's how I see it.
Correct. Thank you.
Commissioners, anybody else before I open it to the public? John, would you like to add anything before I open it to the public?
No, sir.
Okay. Is there anybody out there that would like to speak in favor or against public hearing 2969? For the first time? Anyone? For the second time, in favor or against? Speak up if there is. And going for the third time? Okay, there's nobody here to speak in favor or against, so can I get a motion to close the public hearing if commissioners are all set?
I make a motion, we close it, the public hearing, 2969.
Commission's been made by Commissioner DeGray, a second.
Second.
Okay, seconded by Commissioner Higley. All in favor of closing the public hearing, would just say aye.
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 Opposed?
Aye.
Opposed? All in favor to close the public hearing. Commissioners, any comments, concerns, questions, or can I get a motion to approve?
Mr. Chair, I'll make a motion to approve public hearing 2969 to amend section 5.7 of the zoning regulations to allow personal services as a use within a limited office overlay district. John Prava, applicant.
A second?
Second.
All right, comments and concerns? Before we vote, I have one. I would like it very clearly written in the regulations by special permit only.
Okay, I think it already is in there that all of the uses in the limited office overlay need a special permit.
Okay, I want to be clear about it. Okay, can I have roll call, please?
Ken Elson,
4.
Linda DeGray,
4.
Charles Ladd,
4.
Virginia Higley,
Against.
Francis Alimo,
Or,
John Petronella,
4.
Vinnie Grillo, and Richard Suzak is 4.
Okay, 6 in favor, 1 against. Okay, you pass. Congratulations.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Have a great night.
You too, sir, folks.
Next, XZA 20-05. Lori or Jen?
So this is an application based on a prior discussion that the commission had had. The zoning enforcement officer had expressed some concerns with attics and using them as habitable space. And in the definition for finished floor area, the last or the last sentence just says that the attics cannot be used as habitable space. And this is out of that conversation, the commission had requested that a text amendment be made to remove that sentence. And this is that application.
Okay. Commissioners, comments, questions, concerns? I think this should have been done 30 years ago. Just my opinion. Now, is this a public hearing, Jen?
Yes, it is, because it's a text amendment.
Okay. Commissioners, anybody? I don't see anybody's hands up. Okay, at this point, I'd like to open it to the public. Is there anybody here that would like to speak for or against public hearing XZA 20-05 for the first time? Anyone? For the second time, for or against? No one? And for the third time, XZA 20-05 text amendment application. I see no one who would like to speak, so can I get a motion to close the public hearing?
So moved.
And a second?
Second.
Motion's made and seconded. Any commissioners' comments or concerns before we move to a vote? Nope, none. Roll call, please.
Ken Nelson,
For.
Linda DeGray,
4.
Charles Ladd,
Or,
Virginia Higley,
4.
Francis Alimo,
4.
John Petronella,
4.
and Vinnie Grillo, he's not voting, I'm not sure. And Richard Suzak is for.
All in favor? Okay, moving on. Site plan review, SPR 1808.
Did we get a motion on that last one, or did we just close the public hearing?
I think we just closed the public hearing.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Mr. Chair, I'll make a motion to approve, I got the wrong number here. XZA 2005 to amend section 2.3 of the zoning regulations to remove the sentence prohibiting habitable space with an attic from the finished floor area definition. Town of Enfield applicant.
Can I get a second?
Second.
Motion's made and seconded. Roll call, please.
Ken Nelson,
For.
Linda DeGray,
4.
Charles Ladd,
or,
Virginia Higley,
4.
Francis Alimo,
4.
John Petronella,
4.
and Richard Suzak is for.
All in favor, none against. Great. Moving on, site plan review, SPR 1808. Is there anyone here who is for the applicant?
Yes,
State your name and address for the record.
yes, Chairman Nelson. Hi, this is Valerie Farrow from Good Earth Advisors. Nice to see you and everyone else.
You too.
And a few new faces, I have to say. Tonight, we also have John Wagenblatt, who is the principal of LRC. I think some of you might have seen him in previous applications for Winstanley. We also have Rich Reynolds, who's the lead engineer, also with LRC. So I would just like to take a quick minute to give you an overview of the project intent, and then I'll turn it over to John and Rich, and they'll take you through some graphics, and then we can entertain some questions. As I'm sure all of you know, this is a 50-acre parcel, 100 print shop, which is really sandwiched in between Moody and Zabalski Road. It was acquired in 2017 as part of a portfolio that Winstanley's acquired. They've invested millions of dollars in the building. And more recently, if you recall, there had been many attempts to retain Lego in the town of Enfield. And when they downsized from 555 Taylor, they were able to negotiate an acceptable lease to move them into 100 Print Shop. So the building is currently occupied by Lego as well as Coke. Lego occupies something around 300,000 square feet. Remainder of the building. There's about 5,000 square feet that's unoccupied. So we're adding parking here really to accommodate some flexibility in scheduling of Lego only. Therefore, we're just talking cars and we're talking employees, not trucks or loading and unloading. The employees, interestingly, in today's climate, have flexible schedules. And so there's a lot of employees that sometimes come and go. And then as the holidays ramp up, the employee count can sometimes swell. Sometimes they're just existing employees, they're coming into the building. And they may ramp up depending on what the demand is. Of course, we're in new times, uncharted waters. We're not sure what's going to happen, but we are actively working with Lego and continue to reposition them so that they are comfortable at that site. So John and Rich will take you through. You'll see the rendering in front of you. They'll talk a little bit about the expanded parking, handicap accessibility, some of the circulation throughout the site, and then we'll certainly be willing to answer some questions.
Great, thank you.
You bet.
Hello, this is John Wagenblatt from the LRC Group. Our address is 160 West Street, Suite E, Cromwell, Connecticut. I was hoping, Jen, can you put the aerial image that we sent up on the screen, please? Thank you. This will kind of give you an overview of where the parking area is on the whole property. It's pretty much isolated down to the southeast corner of the parcel. Yep, thank you. And it's approximately from where the entrance driveway come. I'm trying to move a mouse, so. The driveway entrance would be, you can come up Print Shop Road, turn right, and because this is an overflow type of parking lot, the employees would come up Print Shop, turn in, and then fill the main parking lot, and then overflow into this one. Now, from the northwest corner of that parking lot up to the building, it's approximately about 720 feet of a walk, but we are proposing sidewalks and connecting into the existing walkway that it's probably within the westerly 1/3 of that large parking lot. There is a 8-foot, 10-foot wide walkway strip to utilize that. And what we're trying to do with sidewalks from the proposed parking lot, the expanded parking lot, to access that for walking safe passage up to the building. And it would take them up to the southeast corner of the building. One of the comments that did come in was the handicap parking, and we do have to increase the handicap parking by adding 2 spaces, which we are proposing on doing up at the where there's existing parking, or excuse me, existing handicap parking at the northwest corner of that large parking lot.
Jen, can you point that out? Jen, could you please? So they know where we're, there you go.
Yeah. And Jen, if maybe you can just run the cursor down the existing pathway that would connect, nope, over to the right a little bit. There's like a white line. Can you zoom up that a little, that parking lot a little bit?
Here, I can zoom in. Hold on.
Okay, thank you.
It's a large file, so it might take a little while.
Yeah. You had sent me a different map of that area. Do you want me to bring that up?
Yes,
It's up
yes,
to
please.
you.
Yes, please.
If it's
Yes.
easier for you too.
Yep.
Okay.
Perfect.
Okay. Oh, okay. I just need to adjust my screen to see everything. All right. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Yeah, we're proposing to repaint that northwest corner to increase the handicap by 2. And what will happen is it'll actually decrease the parking in that large parking by 2 spaces. And if you look just to the right of that, you'll see that where there's like a crosshatch, that is the pathway that people coming up from the new parking lot would take, exactly. And that goes all the way down to the south edge of this large parking lot, and where we're proposing Jen, maybe if you can go back to the colored rendering now, please. And up at the top left-hand corner of that map is the bottom of that pathway. And we're proposing, where you drop down to the south edge of the parking lot, a sidewalk to connect the new one. Yep. Thank you. And then having a sidewalk to connect into that new parking area. The proposed parking lot is 77 spaces with landscaping. And I'll let Rich get into it, but to describe what we're proposing for the drainage. The parking lot disturbance area is approximately 1.2 acres. And there is a little bit of a cut, Rich, if I'm not mistaken, there was a little bit of a cut on this lot for excess fill.
That's correct.
Mainly because there is an existing berm that actually, Jen, if you can maybe point that berm area, it would be between the wetlands. Go up a little bit more. Okay, yep, right in there. Right. Oh, drop down a little bit. There's a berm just below the where the pointer is, that it needs to be removed. So that's basically where the excess of fill would be coming from.
So Rich, take us through drainage and finish up the site details so we can get to some questions.
Sure. Richard Reynolds, LRC Group. So this particular site plan layout, the existing conditions consist of an overgrown area. This is all overgrown brush. There's an existing barn and an existing well that are going to be removed in this area for the development of the parking lot. There's, if you can see on the west side, the dark green, there's an area of inland wetlands there that were field delineated by Martin Broggie. Site improvements include the bituminous concrete parking area, some concrete sidewalks like were previously talked about, a detention area just to the east of the wetlands. And if you could zoom in on this plan just so we can take a closer look at the edge of the parking area or the aisle. So you can see there's a light blue strip on the west side of the parking spaces and the parking aisle. That's a filter strip we're putting in there to collect stormwater runoff, and it's going to help with the treatment of that stormwater runoff. This stone is 3 foot wide by 3 foot deep. What it does is it collects the runoff and helps filter out some of the oils and capture some of the silts. Any overflow from that would be detained into the stormwater management area. This stormwater management area is designed to attenuate the increase in runoff from the surface change of the project for all the storm events 2 through 50. The other thing, if you could get to the erosion control plan, just so we can talk about that a little bit too. It's sheet EC1.
And Rich, as we're loading that image, just wanted to mention that the site-wide lighting that we're providing is, of course, full cutoff LED.
And they're matching the same light height and style that exists in the existing parking area. One more. There, thank you. So if you zoom in, you can see that we have a construction entrance on the east side of the project off of Cybulski Road, which will remove sediment from any vehicle tracking that might go out onto the town road. As you move westerly, you can see that we have a stockpile area up in the northwest corner, and then a double row of silt fence along the wetland boundary to help protect the wetlands during construction. Also note that the stormwater management area will be used for temporary sediment trap during construction, which will help settle out any sediment from stormwater runoff that might happen once the site is disturbed.
Okay, Rich.
That's about it.
Oh, is there any plan in place with the stormwater management for maintenance of that area, that light blue area, the 3 feet of stone? Because over the years, the sand in the parking lot and any runoff that goes in there eventually is going to clog that up.
So there is a maintenance on the detail sheet. We'd have to beef up the maintenance portion for the filter strip itself, but the stormwater management area has a maintenance schedule.
Okay. All right.
Other questions?
Yeah, I have a question. In terms of, I guess what you're doing is you're using that stone filter strip to collect. You had mentioned oils and any kind of other, undesirable materials off the parking area, and as eventually everything gets more or less, diluted and flows into that detention basin. How are you going to get, I guess, any kind of oils that collect in that area in terms of, normally if you had a catch basin, the catch basin normally separates, the oils and the sediments from, the water, and allows the water to sort of flow, into the detention basins. But this has, none of those capabilities of separating anything. And eventually, over a long period of time, you start getting things that collect, and eventually they get diluted and they get, passed along into, the areas further down the eventual path of, water flow.
Right.
And how is that maintained in terms of?
That's a good question. One of the things that we typically see, because this is more of a low impact development option, is that there's adherence of the fines and the sediment into that gravel strip. And those fines adhere to other things, including oil, other things, because it's more apt to grab oil to a sediment than water, because the two of them obviously don't mix. So over time, what I've seen when I've actually witnessed the vacuuming and the cleaning up of the strips and the basins is that you do see the adherence of any oil or other even larger particulates within that sediment that's filtered out, which is precisely the way it's supposed to be functioning. So that's one observation. Rich, you were going to add to that?
So the real the gist of putting that filter strip or this crushed stone there was really to slow the flow down, so that it wouldn't erode the bank of the stormwater management area. The design of the stormwater management area is really to detain and collect debris and oils and things, where that filter strip, I call it a filter strip, but it's really designed as a way to slow the flow going into that stormwater management area.
Okay, just along those lines, in terms of you saying, well, let's assume that the water does flow and all, particulates, contaminants that are associated with that water flow into the detention basin. Eventually, that detention basin starts collecting, some of these undesirable, materials. Mm-hmm. And how do you clean it out of that detention basin? Because, like you said, if there's some mechanism that sort of removes everything before it goes into detention basin, more or less the water's more cleaner and more, susceptible to being, just flushed into the system without having contaminants in it. But the fact that there's nothing to really separate any of that material from itself, prior to, being allowed into the detention basin, then
just like a Vortechnics or a swirl type unit or hooded outlets, they all need maintenance.
Right.
They don't really collect; they just collect and deter the movement of those things. So on the detail sheet, we have a maintenance schedule that they will go in and look at the stormwater management area and determine how much sediment has been collected in there, and look at debris and clean it out accordingly.
Right. No, I understand that. It's just that, it's a little, obviously it would be, you have to pay higher attention to what you're doing when you're doing that. And ultimately,
the stormwater management basins, in accord with the state guidelines that Fuss and O'Neill wrote, are precisely functioning the way they're functioning. I mean, every time you folks approve a stormwater management basin, it attenuates flow as well as achieves water quality standards. And so that's the design actually of the stormwater basin. Anytime you see one anywhere or whatever you've approved, that's actually the function of it, to collect sediment, oil, any other debris, whether they're fines or, if it's a big storm surge, you'll get larger particulates through there. And as part of the, maintenance and the stormwater approval, there's a maintenance plan. I know that when Stanley's, every couple of years, they look at all of their properties and they can tell. I mean, you could start seeing things fill in. Sometimes there's an outlet that needs to be cleaned. So, that's sort of a standard procedure for any stormwater management basin.
All right. Yeah. Again, I think that, it has to be paid attention to. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you.
So along Commissioner Suzak and what I was referring to earlier, a stormwater basin has a sump in it that you can go in and you can vacuum out the sump, and as long as the sump doesn't overfill, the debris doesn't go down the pipe. When you have a 3-foot trench full of stone, how do you maintain that without actually digging out all the stone, either rinsing it off or hauling it away and putting new stone in?
Because the way that's designed as a filter strip, it attenuates the flow. Okay, you only get a really very fine settling, and then it continues into the stormwater basin when it stops. And when it stops is when you get your major settlement of your sediment, and adhered to that sediment, of course, is oils and anything else that you might pick up from a parking lot. I mean, that's the way it's designed. It lips over, it continues flowing, it slows it down to prevent some erosion. But we do see a little bit of settling through there. And again, if you know, the first indication that that strip's not working is going to be apparent erosion. And as soon as that happens, that's got to be maintained.
The intent of that filter strip, like I mentioned before, was just to slow the flow, to allow some infiltration of the underlying soils. But there are some, we'll call them pipe fingers, that come out once it fills, that's going to drain into the stormwater management area, which is going to treat most or the majority of the stormwater runoff. And hold and collect these silts, oils, and debris.
Okay, commissioners? Rich, are you all set?
Yeah, I think we can beat it to death. You know, I think that, you know, it just needs to be, you know, they just have to do the maintenance whenever they need maintenance, and they just have to pay attention to what they're doing.
Any other commissioners? Lori and Jen, anything you'd like to add?
Yeah. So there were some staff comments that came in, and they did address them, and I sent them out earlier today to you, but I just wanted to get it on the record. The North Central District Health Department, they were interested in the existing well on the property, and they addressed that. They said it will be abandoned per the requirements of the health code. There's a second concern of the health department. Did the Cybulski property next door have access to and connect to the public sewer? That we would have to ask the Water Pollution Control Authority, but that isn't, from a zoning standpoint, that wouldn't really affect our application, or this application.
Jen, I believe they responded after that, right? Below, Water Pollution Control said no more comments? Or am I wrong?
Yeah, the Water Pollution Control Authority didn't have any comments. The engineering department just reviewed the drainage and stormwater management, and they didn't have any concerns. The fire department didn't have any concerns. Water Pollution Control didn't have any concerns. The police department and the building department both had concerns with the amount of handicap parking that was addressed already. And this stuff will be forwarded to those departments as well. And of course, if there's a building permit required, they will definitely weigh in at that point. I just wanted to put that on the record. Also, we did receive some concern from neighboring property owners just concerning traffic, and I directed them to the Planning and Zoning Department, or Planning and Zoning Commission website, where all of the documents are, and I let them know that there is a traffic memo, and the traffic memo does say that there won't be much of an impact on the surrounding roadways from this expansion. And as Val pointed out, it's really going to be employee parking. It's not tractor trailers. So I did forward also the comments from the neighbors over to Val. And that's really it from me.
May I just add one thing?
Sure.
Thank you. And thank you, Jen and Lori did advance us the memo from one of the adjoining property owners. I think it's Mrs. Cybulski. I also made sure that prior to opening tonight's meeting, I did talk to Barbara Green, who is the Senior Vice President of Asset Management for Winstanley. And she's going to give her a call just to give her additional assurance. As you know, Winstanleys are always a good neighbor, and if there's a concern or maybe a misunderstanding, she certainly wants to talk to her directly to, let her, give her cell phone so she can contact her. And then as we proceed into construction, we'll make sure our construction managers recognize her, and if there's issues, that we will certainly keep her in the loop.
Great. Thank you. Commissioners, anybody?
Sounds like they did their homework.
Absolutely. They're a good partner in town, that's for sure.
We love being there.
Okay, Commissioner Suzak.
Because I have one more question in terms of when I looked at your site and the distances that one would have to navigate in order to use that parking. I was just sort of in my head, I said, hopefully they if they needed it for, the volume or the area of the building, I guess we're always trying to minimize the amount of asphalt we're putting in town because, obviously it just is detrimental for everything. And that if it's not required, we wouldn't make you do it. And, I was almost thinking along the lines that, if it was just a matter of, our regulations requiring you to put this parking in, then, and you didn't think you needed it, whether we could sort of, find a way not to have to, put in more parking just for the sake of putting in parking if it never gets used. But from what I understand is that you do think that you're going to be using it and it will be utilized.
This has been a request
Okay.
from Lego for over a year and a half.
Oh, really?
Yes. And, part of it was they wanted to, understand their operations. And as you know, that previously last year, there were some other improvements that you approved. I believe those are now going to go through as well. So, sometimes just between tenants and operations, it takes some time for this to bubble up, but they clearly feel the need for this. And I don't think that they would have requested it from Winstanley if they really didn't. So this really isn't something that we thought, well, gee, there's some empty space, let's pave it. They really feel the need to have that parking there. And of course, Winstanley would like to keep Lego as a tenant there and keep them in Enfield. So that's really what we're talking about.
Right. Yeah. I was just thinking you could save some money if you didn't have to do it, but.
Oh, believe me, if there was a way to do that, we would.
Right. Right. And that was, more of my concern in terms of, just the distances that some of these parking people would have to walk would be tremendous. But
they love Lego as a tenant and they feel it's a good fit there. And they really want to do what they can do to keep them, to accommodate their needs.
All right. Well, as long as it's necessary, let's not do anything that's unnecessary, but.
Well, certainly not when it comes to a cost of that.
Right.
Well,
okay. Thank you.
Sure.
My concern was just more along the lines of the wastewater management and protecting the wetlands because it is pretty wet out there. And I definitely think we're dealing with a reputable company that their reputation is 100%. So I got to believe they're going to keep it maintained and just protect the environment around them.
Absolutely. As they do everywhere.
Yeah. Okay. Commissioners, if you don't have any other questions, I'll entertain a motion if you'd like to move forward.
Because I have one more, just out of curiosity's sake. I did read the wetlands report, and in section 4, they indicated that, there could possibly be some vernal pool, on the site. And I imagine it would be within the wetlands area because I didn't see anything that indicated any kind of, water, large mass of water. But I guess they said they didn't see any, any breeding amphibian egg masses anywhere, but they did their review in February. And they says, well, obviously during our, during the time of our review, we didn't see any. But then when you look at the date of their review, it was February and it was written in March. But do you know if they went actually back to see, if those vernal pools in reality were sort of vernal pools or whether they were just large collection bodies?
We have had a number of wetland scientists on the site.
Uh-huh.
At least 3 that I know of since I have been, working on this property. That was, and I did follow up with Martin. He made the observation, I think, just because of the look of it. But I know that we've had AECOM. I don't know who else has been out there. John, you might recall. Mark Friend. there's been a number of soil scientists, and we've never picked up, even in the last year and a half, I think since the last time we had someone out there. And then to be sure, actually, instead of using the older wetland delineation, we decided to have Martin go out just to double check, and there really wasn't any other changes. But we have never really seen any evidence of that. And knowing how that area has been organized and developed, and I've certainly been out there a number of times, we've never really seen those.
Yeah, again, I was just curious in terms of, because they had mentioned the fact that obviously it wasn't, they didn't notice anything at the time of their review, but, seeing that we are definitely far into spring, and if there was any kind of, thing going on, they would have noticed it by now. But all right, I was just curious as to if somebody actually went back and looked at it.
Right, but we have had people out there through all seasons, and I guess I have as well, and I'm certainly not a soil scientist, but I do know my way around vernal pools, and I've not seen that. Of course, as you know, to actually define a vernal pool, we would have to, go further than that. But fortunately, we're not in the wetlands. We were just touching the inlet, the upland review area, and I think the stormwater management basin, and certainly during construction, the erosion controls in there would certainly protect anything that's there. That is not to say that overland flow from other properties, even non-Winstanley properties, could be affecting the wetlands on the other side as well.
All right. Yeah, and that was the whole reason for my line of questioning, is because I did read this, particular paragraph, and
yes,
I just wanted to point it out. That's what started me to think
I
about.
thought too. Yes.
What happens if it just, flows into this pool, and then it flows into the vernal pool, and, then, it just all goes downhill.
Well, that would be a failure of the stormwater basin.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, we don't expect that to happen.
All right. Thank you.
Sure. Thank you.
Any other commissioners? Okay, at this point, if you'd like to entertain a motion to approve.
Lori wants to say
Yeah,
something.
Mr. Chairman, if you could make sure that the people state their names when they're making the motions, because the recording secretary's having a hard time deciphering who's making the motions.
Okay.
Please.
Yeah.
Thank
All right.
you.
Can I get a motion to approve?
Well, I'll
Ginny
make a
Higley,
motion to
approve.
approve.
Oh, all right, I'll
Commissioner
second.
Alamo making a motion to approve?
The motion's been made by Commissioner Alamo. Can I have a second?
Second by Charlie Ladd.
Motion's made and seconded. Roll call, please, unless there's questions or concerns. I see none. Roll call.
Ken Nelson,
4.
Linda DeGray,
4.
Charles Ladd,
4.
Virginia Higley,
4.
Francis Alamo,
4.
John Petronella,
4.
and Richard Suzak is 4.
All in favor, none against. Congratulations.
Thank you so much.
And thank you for investing in Enfield, and hopefully we'll see you soon.
You are going to see us soon.
Great.
We're working with Lori right now, and I have to tell you, thank you all for your volunteerism. I mean, I know these are uncharted waters, and doing what you're doing, and Lori and Jen and the planning department. I mean, as you folks know, I work in a lot of different towns. You folks have not even skipped a beat, so I'm impressed, and
We're trying. And look, you get to sit in the comfort of your own home.
I know, this is
I
great.
hope you're
I didn't
giving
have
them
to drive.
I hope you're giving them a discount because you didn't have to drive to Enfield.
Of course.
Okay.
All right,
Everybody,
folks, take care.
have a great night.
All
Thank
right,
you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Next, other business, review of bylaws.
Still haven't heard back from the town attorney on that.
Okay, so we'll hold on that. And B, general discussion of regulations and procedures.
I think that we finally have the RFQs and Ps together for the POCD and zoning update. there was some issues with the COVID situation that they needed to change the standards and stuff, and the insurance changed a little bit, and so we've been working on that. But I think, fingers crossed, that by tomorrow we'll have it approved and we could move forward. So I'm hoping to maybe have interviews by late May.
Let me ask you,
Great.
is there any talk at the LOB about possibly doing like a 12-month extension on this? Because I know all towns in Enfield are going to have serious budget issues this year. And, you know, it's going to cost money to do the plan. And, you know, that's something that's really not urgent at this point, but getting the town back on track is. So I don't know.
Right. So the money was already allocated. So it's in this year's budget. So it's already, assumed that it's going to go towards this. I haven't heard anything about the LOB extending anything. I don't know. But I know that as far as the plan of conservation and development, if we really need an extension, I think that, it would be warranted and we could get that. And I've actually written that into part of the RFQ, is that we may need to seek that.
Okay, thank you, Lori.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, correspondence? Anybody?
Nope.
I see none. Commissioners' correspondence? Commissioners?
Nope.
Wow,
Nope.
none. Town planners report.
Really Jen's more of the town planner at this point than I am, but I'll just speak. We've really been working hard to getting these meetings up and running and successful. And I think you guys have been great and have caught on. And, if it wasn't for you guys cooperating with us, this wouldn't be happening at all. So thank you for doing what you're doing.
Yeah.
And
We told you we were trainable.
Yeah. It's a lot of work in the background, but I think by the time this is over, we're going to have this down pat.
Great. And did we do the interviews yet for Raquel's position?
Tomorrow.
Okay.
Tomorrow, all afternoon, I'll be doing interviews. We have 4 very good candidates.
Great. Good. Okay, administrative approval report.
We have not administratively approved anything
Okay.
for these last 2 weeks.
Okay, applications to be received. Tell me you got a bunch.
We have actually received at least 2 so far. And they came in this week, so that's why they weren't listed on the agenda. But one of them is around the lake, and another one is in Thompsonville.
And you're hoping to have them on next meeting's agenda?
I'm hoping to. I have to review them. I know that both of them were missing some items when we have all of our permits online now, and they were both submitted online. That said, we still need all the old requirements from when permits were filed paper. Just they need to be attached in the software, and there's a little bit of a breakdown that we're working on, getting people to submit all the things they need to submit online.
Okay.
So I'll be reviewing those and taking a look at what they need, if anything.
Okay, great. Commissioners, any questions?
Not at all. Good job, ladies.
Okay, opportunities and unresolved issues.
So I staffed the wetlands meeting the other night, and they are not surprisingly not in favor of this. I see the pluses and minuses of it, but I am, as I stated before, very concerned that you're going to have too much on your plate with all the different meetings that you're going to be having with the other projects that we just discussed. But we have not had the opportunity to even address putting it before town council yet, because they have not been allowing anything to go on to the agenda yet. So that's why we haven't pursued it, because they're just like, we're not taking anything unless, it's budget related right now, and they're going to start taking a couple things, hopefully at the next meeting, be after the budget hearing.
Okay, so as long as we just get that on their agenda when they're open, we'll let them make the decision and then see how we continue forward.
Yep.
With that.
Absolutely.
Okay, great meeting. Thank you, everyone. Motion to adjourn.
I make a motion to adjourn. This is Linda.
Do I have a second?
Second by Commissioner Limo.
Motion's made and seconded. All in favor? Say aye.
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 Opposed?
But we were having so much fun. You
Hey,
guys,
I got a long drive home tonight. Okay.